I saw the truck come out. I'm like, I have no chance. Like, I'm gonna hit. I panicked a little bit. I slammed the brakes, so I dropped the bike as I was crashing into him, and I hit him at an angle. And so I just remember like rolling around on the ground, and then I'm stuck. I'm just gonna do the things I like doing, that I want to do, that bring me life, that make me feel good, as opposed to just like rushing around and people pleasing. I didn't see you the way you see you. And then later on, I realized nobody sees us the way we see us. And often we don't see us in the best light. What's your karmic impact? How are you gonna help the world with what you're doing? Because a lot of people think about what they can get, but if you can switch it to also how can you serve, things flow easier. Like, it changes how you look at it, and then it changes how you react to it, and then it changes how people act to it. What's your deep inner core motivating factor? And if you're able to actually answer that, like find it and then answer it and then act like that's what matters to you, things change.
Welcome everyone to the show. My name is Aren Darko, and I'm sitting here with Mr. Aren Bahia.
Nice name. I meant him.
Also Mr. Aren, and he pronounces my name the same way that most people should pronounce it, which is the correct way, which is Aren.
Right. Well, it's funny because mine's not spelled like Aaron, and like Indonesians will be like they'll be Aren. I'll be like, close enough. Like, you can call me Aren, and gula aren means palm sugar. So when I say Aren, like gula aren, they're like, oh, haha, yeah, like they enjoy that because it's like, tall, sweet. I'll take it. Tall, dark, and sweet. Palm sugar. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, man. It's great to be on and great to be in your home of Lighthouse, one of the businesses you're a partner in. And that's another thing we're going to talk about, right? Like the amount of businesses that you've been able to start in such a short space of time. Like you run 5 businesses at the moment, right?
Yeah, I've launched 6 businesses in 6 years.
Wow.
Count that, because my first business out here that I discontinued was a Airbnb bed and breakfast, because I just wanted to take a shot at moving to Bali and launching a business and seeing where it went.
Yeah.
And then all these other things happened out of that one risk I took on myself. It wasn't the one that panned out. It wasn't the big hit for me, because I realized after launching a bed and breakfast, I didn't give a shit about beds or breakfasts. And I was like, we started tattooing in the dining room, and that made more money than the whole bed and breakfast business. And I was like, this is more fun, way less work, way more interesting, way more exciting for me, way more, what I found out how to be an entrepreneur in the way that I wanted to by launching a few businesses that I was like, I can do something else. But I gained capabilities and skills, and that was the first one. Villa Sayang was the first business I had. That was the name of the bed and breakfast. And then quickly after that, it was like, no, I'm gonna do tattoos, own tattoo shops. And I went from tattoo shops to a bigger tattoo shop with a restaurant and yoga studio. Then I realized, okay, the restaurant's a bit of a headache. I don't want to do the restaurants anymore. Then we did an online personal development company. Okay, cool. I learned how to like do the frameworks of an online company that way. And then it went into consulting for a company called Made Hot. I'm also a coach on that platform. Then, also developing my own coaching business to help people launch their brands. And then it went into Lighthouse, where Monty brought me in as a partner here to help launch, because I've had the experience in it, and it worked out perfectly. So it's kind of funny that like I started off trying to kind of do one thing and then ended up doing a bunch of other things.
Yeah, like that's crazy. Like you're like the well-rounded entrepreneur, like you're doing bricks and mortar, and you're also doing online as well.
Yeah. And then coaching other entrepreneurs how to like launch, get going, build and grow, and also have a give back and a charity aspect. Yeah, that's an important part of being, an entrepreneur, to build like a community around you, to build a lifestyle. The entrepreneur lifestyle shouldn't just be making money and that's it. It's got to be giving to the community around you. And I feel like that's actually a well-rounded entrepreneur, is you got community. You're like, what's the point of being Scrooge McDuck and just being some rich, lonely dude? Nah, like make the world better, especially the world around you better. And that makes it worth it. I've done shit to make money in my past as a drug dealer that I wasn't helping the community around me. I was just making paper and wanting to have fancy belts and bullshit. And getting through that to actually being to a space of, I need to generate good around me. And that good around me will generate and make me feel good inside of me. And I really saw that because I didn't feel good inside of me when I was making tons of bricks of cash money, and I was sad. I was depressed. I was a drug addict. I wasn't happy. Until then, I started actually seeing that every business I have needs to have some sort of karmic imprint that's positive in the community around me and helping people. It really made it worth it. Like quickly after that, I was like, oh, I'm a happier person now. I'm more centered. I'm less on these crazy depressive and anxious ups and downs. I'm just a bit more of like a centered, happy person. So it
Mm.
really helps to keep an entrepreneur grounded and centered is to make a positive impact.
Hmm. So you believe that, like, because I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs, they say like, you shouldn't need to get fulfillment from your business. Like,
Mm.
what
I
do you
don't
think about
know.
that?
I don't get it. I think it's
Yeah.
important to get fulfillment everywhere you can.
Hmm.
Like to get fulfillment in everything. Get fulfillment in the flowers behind you because you see the flowers and you're like, oh, that adds beauty to my life. To be present where you can find fulfillment in every way possible
Hmm.
makes life more worth living. Yeah, it doesn't make or break you because you can lose your business and still know that you could start another business. Like
Yeah.
that's the marker of a true entrepreneur because, you know, you hear all the time like these billionaires that went bankrupt. Like that's a part of the game. Losses are a part of the game, but can you rebound from a loss? And that's important. You know, like COVID crushed my brick and mortars, and I was paying out of my pocket for 2 years. You know,
Damn.
yeah, it was rough.
Wow.
And so you're seeing your bank account getting drained while you're not making money, while the whole world is sick and pandemic and fear. That's hard. It was hard, but can you bounce from that? And that was important to actually be able to, okay, can I pivot? I mean, I also got hit by a truck, and that's why my leg is up. That's why I have
Yeah.
a broken leg still. It's been 8 months. Broke both my legs, my pelvis, and my elbow. That's something that's like, it's difficult. Can you bounce back from that? And it's like these tests that I'm getting from the universe where it's like, well, how bad do you want it? You got comfortable. You got complacent. Maybe you're enjoying too much of the wrong things. Can you get back to what works, get back to what's simple, and remember that you're a badass, resilient dude? Can you do that again? And
Mm.
you're like, I guess. Fuck, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
There's a lot we can talk about,
I
and
know.
there's a lot of different avenues we can go. But like, as you brought that up, I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up because it fits into what I'm going to say next, which is that vibration of like, when something goes wrong, like it lends itself to more things going wrong. So when you had that near fatal accident, which was crazy, I actually didn't know you. I met you once before that in the gym in Nirvana,
Oh yeah.
and then I heard about it, and I remember messaging you, DMing you at the time, and man, I was just so glad that you obviously you're still alive. Like
It's a close
I
call.
saw the footage that you posted
Yeah.
of the truck, and it was like, wow.
Gnarly.
What
Yeah.
was it like? What was your headspace like before that accident? Were you in like a negative vibration, or what?
A little bit. Honestly, I was exhausted. I had driven all over the island that day. Like I started my day in Uluwatu. I drove up to Ubud to check on my two businesses there. I had driven back to Kurobakan to pick up the girl I was dating. I brought her to my uncle Jadip's house in Denpasar. We had a full dinner there, like a big dinner party. Drove back to her house. Kicked it with her for a little bit. We had like a minor argument, then had really good makeup sex. And then it was like she was like, "Well, I have a photo shoot early in the morning. Do you want to sleep on the couch downstairs because I need to get a night's sleep?" And I was a bit like, "That's kind of weird." Like I figured if we just like had good sex twice, maybe I'd stay over and cuddle. I'm a romantic. Where's the cuddles at? And she was like not really a romantic type. And I was just like, that's kind of weird. It was 12. It was midnight. I'm like, I'll just drive home then. I was just like, fuck it. I'll just go home. I've been doing that drive home late on the highway many times. I knew the highway really well. I could just do it on autopilot. It was midnight. I was tired. It had started raining a little bit. So I was like, okay, I won't floor it back. And I had my new Ducati 800cc Ducati Monster. I was like, oh yeah, it'll be a fun drive. I have my gear on. I have my motorcycle gear. I'm safe ish. And as I was hitting the highway, I was like, oh, it's a little wet. Don't go too fast. So I was like mindful about that. And the highway, I'd usually crank it up. I could do about 140, no problem. 160 even kilometers an hour. And so I was just doing 80. And that's not slow, but I'm in the middle lane of the highway. I have a green light. And so, there's times where you're just doing things on autopilot. Like you could drive home to your house without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And you'd be thinking about something else. And I remember I was listening to like Jay-Z or something and just cruising back. And all of a sudden this truck pulls out in front of me and I have no chance. Now, maybe if I was not in autopilot more, I would have been more perceptive to that. But really, you were in a position where you wouldn't be extra, not mindful, vigilant, I guess. It was late at night. I was tired, but fuck, I wish I was a bit more vigilant at that point. And I was in a position in the middle of the lane, in the middle of the highway. You wouldn't be thinking someone would just be pulling out there. So he pulled out without looking, and he was probably like, it's midnight, no one's going to be driving through at this point at that time, blah blah blah. He was taking a bit of a cheeky, like, driving when he didn't have the light, but it wasn't busy. So it was kind of like so not busy and so late that two people are just kind of like whatever, but he definitely fucked up. He was not in the right here. It was 100% his fault. And so when I hit in that kind of mindset, was a little bit like, maybe not as sharp as I should have been. And that's the funniest thing, is like that's when things go wrong, when you're just not as sharp as you should be, sober. And like, luckily, but yeah, I was awake the entire time. So like I saw the truck come out. I'm like, I have no chance. Like, I'm gonna hit. I panicked a little bit. I slammed the brakes, so I dropped the bike as I was crashing into him, and I hit him at an angle. And so I just remember like rolling around on the ground, and then I'm stuck. And the first thought I thought was, is my bike okay? Like, my Ducati. Like, the first thing I thought. I looked over my shoulder trying to find the bike, but I couldn't move. And I'm in my truck. My leg is stuck under the truck wheel, and I'm trying to pull it. I'm trying to pull the leg, but it's like pinned at the very edge of the truck wheel, and I can't move. I'm like, look, that's weird. I can't move my leg. And I hear, and he's stalled the truck, and his gears are grinding. And I'm like, yo, wait, don't drive, because he'll drive over my leg. So I'm screaming, hearing this truck revving on my leg. And I'm just like, yo, don't drive. And there's some bystanders that stopped and made sure he got out of the car. And then they had to pull me from under the truck because I couldn't move. And that was excruciating. And I was like, okay, nobody move me again. Like, don't touch me, because something's really wrong. And that's when I had to really remember your training. Like, shit's not good right now. Shit just got real. Remember your training. Find your breath. Be mindful of what's happening. Take control of the situation. Respond. Don't react. Like, get shit done. And I had to just drop into it right then and there of my years of practice in martial arts, meditation, mindfulness, emergency training. Like, it all kind of converged into, now's the time. You got to act. Don't fuck around. Yeah.
So you were conducting, because you told me this. You were like, you said you were conducting the whole thing.
I managed the entire traffic scene on my back in Indonesian, a language I learned, and how to be like, you call an ambulance, you get photos of the crime scene, you get the key out of the bike, you move the bike out of the road, you get the information from the other driver. And I'm like on my back, bleeding out. I hit an artery in my leg, and there's huge pool of blood around me. I'm like, okay, deal with the situation. And this Balinese mom, there's like Ibu, comes out, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She just saw what happened, and my leg's bent sideways with blood pouring out of it. There's a bone sticking out of the leg, and she's freaking out. And I'm way more calm than she is. I'm like, oh shit, like, this must be bad if you're freaking out like that. And she pulls out of her purse, hold on. And she pulls out of her purse one Panadol, like one fucking aspirin. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm fucking screaming in pain here, and you're gonna give me one single solitary Panadol? And I'm just like that's funny. It's like, all right, go on then. Like, I'm not gonna refuse it at this point. I'm like, sure. And I take her Panadol. Like, what's wrong? This is my life right now. Okay, that was wild.
Wow.
It's a really good check to the ego. To if you think you're a boss, to be like, okay, now there's a chance you will, you'll be in a wheelchair for a long time, and you might not walk correctly. You're like, oh, okay, things get put in perspective quick.
Well, I think it's really amazing how you were able to focus that much in that moment. Even though you did have training, it's still like, you can train for an event, but still not be ready for it,
Yeah. That's when it gets real, because you're dealing with multiple factors, the most excruciating pain you've ever been in.
Yeah.
Your nervous system wanting to go into shock. So I'm battling going into shock, because it's like, and I could tell, okay, I need to calm my breath. I'm hyperventilating. My nervous system is trying to decide whether it's better to make me pass out because the pain is so high, or like, what do we do here? So your nervous system's freaking out. And if you can have control of your body to know that's what's happening, my nervous system is going into shock. I need to combat the shock and calm myself down so I can act. I don't have the luxury. Do not pass out. You need to act. It's not the time just like, no. It's the time to actually make sure things happen correctly in this situation. You can't trust anybody but your own actions in these type of situations. Never give it up. And so I had to like really take control. It wasn't the time to freak out. I know there's like, just surrender. Nah, not in Indonesia. Make sure you handle it.
And I bet you're glad you did
Yeah.
now, looking back, right?
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
had the footage, you had the pictures,
Yeah. 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 Well,
people took care of
actually,
your bike.
I did a trauma session around it, like to let go of some of the trauma of the crash, right?
Mhm.
And I had to really look at it because for the first 4 or 5 days while I was in the hospital and I opened my phone, my friends took my real phone away from me and I had like another phone. But after about 4 or 5 days, I opened up Instagram and I had just hundreds of messages, right? But on my feed, I followed a bunch of motorcycle accounts and I remember seeing a motorcycle and it was like, oh, I had like a trauma response. I'm like, oh, my body just tensed up. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. I've studied trauma. I've been through different traumatic situations, but I can be mindful enough. I can see I'm having a trauma response. And the same thing happened before the first surgery when I'm still like busted, broken leg, and they're just trying to figure out what the extent of the damage is. So they're putting me into a MRI machine. Being transported from the bed to the MRI machine was excruciating. A broken pelvis, two broken legs, and they're moving you. That's not a good time. Like I almost passed out from that pain. That was like so much. And I just remembered, okay, you're having a trauma response right now. You know what this is. So as you're going into the MRI machine, and I could feel it, I'm like, I can't control my breath. I can't control my heart rate. It's like, you need to take care of yourself. And I was just new. I was like, go have a good cry. That's it. Like I go into the MRI machine. I'm like, now's your time. Have your cry because you're all fucked up. And if you don't let this out and express you're all fucked up right now, it's not healthy. Like something bad will happen out of that. You need to actually express your pain. And I was like, okay. So I go into the MRI machine as compact and efficient and as manly as I could, where no one could hear me because the MRI machine is really loud. I had a good cry, let that out, and then when they pulled me back out, I was like, okay, I can act. I can handle the situation again and get back in control. But you can't just not express your feelings because you could lose. You have to suppress them here and there. Like during the accident, I had to figure shit out. It's not the time to like. I didn't shed one tear, but when I had the time where I'm safe enough now, okay, now I can have that good cry. And it was important because then I could get back in control. I could feel it welling up where I wasn't having control. Oh no, I'm starting to fall apart. You get it back. Okay, let it out, then get back together. So then when I finally had a little bit more, you know, idea that okay, I'm going through trauma. I see a motorcycle, it freaks me out. I did a session around it, and the session was a hypnosis type of session with a guy who lives in Django, who's awesome. And Richard put me through this mindset drill where I had to look back and tell myself now that I'm safe. And he's like, remember the first time that you were safe after the accident? And I was like, oh, it was after I got out of ICU. ICU was intense. The intensive care unit sucked. Super loud, super scary. Tons of other people in there. Like 8 other people in there that are in critical situations. Machines beeping, people wailing and screaming and moaning. Like it's not cool. The minute I got out of that place into a stable room, I remember, okay, now I'm safe. Past the hardest part. Okay, quiet room by myself. First time you felt safe. Okay, from that point, you would tell yourself from the part that you know you're safe, you'd go back to yourself the same day of the accident before the trauma happened, and you'd have to tell yourself that this is what's going to happen, what you're going to go through. How would you explain it to them, to yourself? So I'd have to be like, okay, I was in Karma House earlier that day having a couple of meetings. So I'd have to go up to myself earlier that day and tell myself, you're going to be in an accident. You're almost going to die. It's extremely near fatal accident. You're going to break both your legs, your pelvis, your elbow, but you're going to handle the situation well. You're going to get yourself help efficiently. You're going to get to the hospital. You're going to get through it. You're going to be proud of how you handled it. And I had to like look at it in that light, that I have to be positive around how I acted and responded and find the good in that situation. So like, hey, I could stand up to that. Like at least you didn't die. At least you were able to be tough enough stock that wouldn't kill you, because that is a really serious accident you've been through. And I had to explain that to myself, through this hypothetical
Mm.
situation, and then relive it, then think about the accident again. And when I did that, it instantly dropped a lot of the fear around the situation and a lot of that trauma, because it went from being like, oh my god, this happened to me, to you handled it. And that shift,
Mm.
that perspective change around it, actually dropped so much of the trauma response for me. It was amazing to see how it worked. We can reframe. And I do this in my coaching all the time. We reframe someone's perspective on something, it changes your response to it. And I
Mm.
was like, damn, that actually worked in the trauma, where I wasn't like freaked out when I saw a motorcycle anymore. It took time. I mean, when I drove from the hospital, I remember the first time I got out of the hospital after 17 days, and I still couldn't even get myself into the taxi. Like my driver had to pick me up from the wheelchair and put me in the taxi. It was fucking crazy. And we're driving back and being in traffic the first time, going home from the hospital, I just saw like a bike go by me, go by the car, and I was like, whoa, like, oh, it's a scary world out there. Like
Mm.
I had a trauma response for a while. Like, will I ever drive again? Will I ever get on a scooter or a bike again? I'm like the first little while, it was scary, and learning then to reintroduce yourself to the environment. I could get it how people are in traumatic situations, and then you get to kind of reintroduce yourself to life again, because life can be chaotic and you will see the thing that triggered you again. So how are you going to show up to meet those triggers? That's been an interesting thing actually to learn about through all this.
Mm. What do you think about now that you look back at it?
Yeah.
Like, do you think that this was needed? Do you feel like you were needed to have this lesson?
I mean, yeah, there's always those like things were meant to happen
Yeah.
situations, and I'm sure of it. Yeah, I'm sure this was my karma, and I
Mm.
knew that actually in the ambulance, where I
Wow.
was like, okay, I'm in the ambulance in the most excruciating pain I've ever felt, and I remember looking up at the ambulance ceiling, like I was praying to that ceiling like it was God, and I just accepted it. I'm like, okay, I get it. Please don't let me be paralyzed. Like, please don't let me be paralyzed. I will use this. I'll take it. I'll do amazing things with this. Whatever this is, I accept it. I'm sorry, but please. And that was like I accept this, but like, can we make a deal? Can you just please not? Please don't let me be paralyzed. I'd
Mm.
probably be a good person. I promise. And I was like making a deal there, but I knew that this was meant to be happen. This is meant to happen. This is my karma. At some level, I was meant to go through this, so I might as well use it to the best of my abilities and handle this to the best I can, to show myself that I won't let this make me a weaker person. I'll use this and alchemize it to make me a deeper person with a deeper sense of character. And the work that I've done is designed to help me get through this. And I wouldn't have been given this intensely difficult time if I wasn't able to use it and alchemize it and not get weaker from it. So that's been something that's been a crazy test. And it's
Yeah.
one of those things where people are like, the universe wouldn't give you anything you couldn't handle. And I'm just like, yeah, fuck. This hurts. This isn't fun. This fucking sucks.
Do you know, it's interesting how you view it, because like you mentioned the word karma, right?
Mhm.
And what do you mean by that? Like in terms of this was my karma, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I feel like this was something that I've been meant to go through, that karmically in some way or another, okay, maybe it was from when I used to be a drug dealer. Maybe it was, times where I haven't been kind, or times that I've had to actually deal with this. Or maybe it was, this was coming for me and I needed to go through it. There's always like those other theories, oh, past lives and blah, blah, blah. There's like that. There's some way that this ripple effect had to come for me, and I can't fight that. So just accept that. And then also look at what ripple effects will come from this. So what was meant to come in my life after this because of this. So when I think of it that way, is like what actions and ripple effects what caused this, and what will this cause. And sometimes we can choose what it'll cause, so we can kind of rationalize it in our own sense, and it's all into our interpretation. But I would think I was meant to slow down in life. I was rushing too much, and the effects of me rushing after too much of the material gains, and just like, oh, launch businesses here, do this, do that, grasping too much caused this. And I'm meant to continue on my path, but be more mindful about my energy and why I'm doing things. And I was like, okay, that's kind of what I see the higher lesson is out of it so far.
Mm. And how has this changed the way you show up in your life now?
I don't rush for anybody anymore. I'm slow. I'm taking it easy.
Mm.
Yeah, no more like I still maybe pack a few too many things in my day every day. Like being a high performer and managing many things at once is something that I could see I like doing. Like it's something that I enjoy, being able to switch from project to project to project and push each one along as I'm going through things. Great, but I'm not going to be frantically running around anymore. I'm just going to do the things I like doing, that I want to do, that bring me life, that make me feel good, as opposed to just like rushing around and people pleasing. And it's just like, I won't do that anymore. I'm gonna be slow. And it changed my priorities. It changed how I really value my loved ones and the people around me that show me love, that care for me, that showed up. So many people showed up for me during this situation. It's really hard to receive. Like, it brought tears to my eyes to really see, like, wow, I'm loved. And it really challenged a lot of self-love issues, to be honest, because it was just like, wow, that many people love me. Wow, why don't I love myself that much? And it got really confronting in so many different ways. It got deep. Like, I was just like, wow, I would show up so much for other people, but why wouldn't I show up for myself as much as other people are showing up for me? And that was like, whoa. I did a Vipassana in my house by myself while I was in a wheelchair. And I was really working through that, thinking about it. I'm like, damn, this whole thing also happened for me to really learn how to nurture myself and take care of myself and show up for myself, rather than always doing it for others. And when all these people were wanting to give to me while I've been in a space where I'm usually giving, to have to then be able to receive was weird. Like, it actually was. Like, I remember Dave, Meditation Dave, owner of the Astana, my partner in Yogi Lab, close friend of mine, he put it out when it first happened on his stories, for people to pray for me when I was going into my first surgery. And it got reshared hundreds of times. Like, I had like 400 or 500 different messages to go through of people resharing it and caring and sending love. And that made me instantly cry. I was in the hospital bed. I had tubes all over me, my neck in a brace. I both my legs in cast, my arm in a cast. Like, I was like a mummy. I couldn't move. And I just remember looking at that phone, and that I broke down crying from that, just to see, like, wow, that many people were trying to send me love and caring about me that time. It choked me up. It was so like, whoa, that's so difficult to receive. Like, oh my God, people love me. And I was like, whoa, it was a weird thing. I never felt that before. That type of scenario. I never thought of it that way. And to receive love, I never thought I had a problem with it. And it was like, oh, this was crazy. It was weird to go into, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see, like, because just from knowing you briefly, it's like you give a lot. Like, I've been around you, and you're like, you're such a giver.
Thank you.
And that's I also see myself in that too. Like, I'm the same way. So it's interesting now looking back, I'm guessing for you, like, to see, wow, this event happened to show me that, wow, I'm actually really loved by all these people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was sweet. And that's something I don't want to forget. Because, there's days that our inner critics can come down on us. Am I worthy? Like, do people like me? Am I loved? And it's funny because I think a lot of people wouldn't think that I would think those things.
Right.
But there's the most beautiful, talented, artistic, popular people in the world are also insecure too. Like, we all have our insecure parts.
Yep.
And I'll never forget this because I remember my ex-girlfriend from when I was like 24, and she was a drop dead gorgeous, beautiful girl. And she would get insecure if she was pretty enough. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're stupidly beautiful. How could you ever be insecure about how you look? Like, I couldn't fathom it. But it's because I didn't know much about people and our things and our shadows and our, at that point, that time and that level of my consciousness, I was a fucking coke dealer. I didn't know shit, So I was like, when she told me she was insecure, I was like, yeah, right. Because I didn't see you the way you see you. And then later on, I realized nobody sees us the way we see us. And often we don't see us in the best light. Then we should see us a little bit more. And then a lot of us, we can have an overly extended idea of our ego in other ways. We can overcompensate, and then we can really under hit the mark on other levels too. So to have a real total idea of what we are, the perception of ourself, and being well-rounded, it's not that common, and it's not that easy. Yeah, and I really realize that about me now too. There's some ways where I think I'm probably overly confident, and you're like, calm the fuck down, Aaron. You're not that funny. But then there's other ways where I'm like, oh, actually, wait, am I that worthy of love? And it usually circles back to an issue with self-love, like I did with the ex that I mentioned. There's a self-love issue there that she felt she wasn't worthy in certain ways, and that she didn't see people would see her the way that she sees the people. She didn't connect that the way that she sees herself and the others see her. There was a gap there. And I think a lot of us can have that. Have you ever struggled with that, where you're like, the way you see you is different than the way people see you?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
it's fucked up. Another example of this, and I feel like this might be the running theme of what we talk about today, because it just led that way, was by the time this comes out, okay, I want to surprise my family for my cousin's wedding. It's in mid-June, and I told them already I'm not going to be well enough to fly. Like it's a bit too much for me to, I don't want to show up at my cousin's wedding hobbling on these crutches that I'm on right now. It's just not the look. Like I want to show up and see it's my little cousin's wedding, show up to my family, they look up to me, and I want to be, in good shape, show up looking good, dapper in a suit, not like I can barely move, I got broken legs. Like it's not what I wanted, but I want to make that effort to show my family how much I love and care for them, that I would train my ass off to get well enough to show up to come to that family wedding, because they mean that much to me, because I love them that much. And I said this to a guide, a teacher, a coach I was working with, and she goes, why wouldn't you show up and care for yourself because you love yourself that much? And I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, I instantly started crying. The tears came out. I'm like, oh, why can't I show up for myself as much as I love myself, that I'd show up for my family, like show up for others? Why can't we just show up for ourselves that much? It's easy to do it for others.
Yeah.
But would you do it for yourself? And I was like, fuck. That's been an interesting reoccurring theme of this whole accident. Yeah.
That's super interesting, because I'm going through that now.
Yeah.
Like literally like the last week,
so?
I've noticed that about myself.
Uh-huh.
And so this is another thing, like there's no coincidences in life. So the fact that we're talking about this very topic,
I'm sure people listening could relate to that too. They're like, damn it, can I show up for myself the way I'd show up for someone I love? Can you show up for yourself the way you show up for your mom? Would you show up for yourself that way?
Yeah.
Often we wouldn't. Why is that?
Yeah. Why is that?
Why is that?
I don't know why that is. Why is that?
There's something about loving ourselves on that deepest level that's uncommon and foreign. I'd say for me, it's so much easier and noble, even, or this like false idea of heroic that will push past our own deepest nurturing, caring, loving needs, because it's uncomfortable and weird. But to do it for someone else is like, of course we would. I'll give you the shirt off my back, of course. Like I would da 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 da. But for you, would you do it for you? And often we're like, no, suck it up. And I feel like that's kind of like the male psyche out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a movie called In Time. Have you seen that? Justin Timberlake? Is
it Justin Timberlake and Scarlett Johansson?
I think so.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where they both have like 20 seconds left or something. And they're like talking to each other. She's like, take my time. He's like, no. And it's an interesting scene, because would you give your time if you had 20 seconds left and your loved one had 20 seconds left? Would you give them 20 seconds, or would you take their 20 seconds?
Interesting.
I
was literally thinking about this in the shower like yesterday, and I was thinking about Dave, who I was talking about, Meditation Dave. You'd love this guy. He's a genius. And I'm like, he's probably, I'd probably die for a lot of my friends, but he's one person I would happily give my life for, because I know he'd make a bigger impact than me. Like he's gonna impact millions. He's teaching free meditation every month to the world. He has an online Vipassana for free every month on the 11th to the 22nd. And I'm like, that's gonna help so many people. And like, I care about him so deeply that if it was like, I think it's one of those, like those sacrifice things, like people would sacrifice their life for their country. The country's bigger than them. And I'm like, well, is his mission big enough? If Dave's mission on this planet is bigger than what I'm going to accomplish, I'd do it. Give you my time in a second. It has a greater good than just me. But if it was somebody that's like, some fucking rapist or something, I'd be like, no, give me your time. I'm taking it. It's a strange, it was like all noble and something. And then, sorry guys. I would kill people. But it's
Is that the first time you said that about Dave, or you said that before?
I was thinking about it, and I never actually said that out loud.
Okay.
And I was thinking about it, and I almost sent him a voice note, because I often send him voice notes of just shit I'm thinking. and he listens to it, and then gives me a good interpretation about it. And I was thinking about saying that, but it would be weird for me to even say that. So I remember like chickening out. I'm like, maybe that's a bit weird to say. It was a bit much. Like, I was like a Monday or Sunday afternoon at 11 o'clock, Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, and you get like this, like, bro, I would die for you. Like, this voice note's kind of fucked up. It's a bit extreme. I'm sure he'd get it and he'd appreciate it, but it was a bit extreme for that circumstance.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just get really drunk next time I see him and tell him then, bro, I'd fucking die for you. You know that, right? Like, your mission's bigger than mine. And I would just like, bro, if I had to do it, I'd die for you, man. He'd be like, okay. He doesn't drink. So he'd be like, oh, okay. He needs some water.
So you got a lot of tattoos. So can you talk to us about like
Mm.
how you view tattoos and art on your body and
Yeah. I mean, it shifted. Before, I was a cocky little shit
Mhm.
that wanted to desperately be cool and compensate for not feeling very cool inside. And growing
Mm.
up in a very rough area, and the guys who were all inked out were respected, and I thought were really cool. And this kickboxing gym that I was training at, a lot of the dudes that were like, oh, the dudes were super inked out, and I was like, I want to be one of those guys. And I could see that having lots of ink in that neighborhood kind of ranked you as like
Mm.
more cool, and you'd have to like kind of earn the ink and do enough work to be able to deserve the ink that you have on you. It was just a weird subculture. So I started starting a full like Japanese style bodysuit, and I really enjoyed it, but I was also a little bit too like, oh, I didn't want to have it full sleeves and neck that you could tell I had tattoos. I also didn't want like cops to instantly know I was like a shady motherfucker, but I look pretty shady anyways. Even if I didn't have full sleeve tattoos, you could just tell by looking at me. It's just my demeanor, my swagger, the clothes. Like I just clearly look like a dope boy. And I had a like you could if I wore a t-shirt and jeans, you couldn't see any tattoos. So I had full legs, full back, full stomach, and arms to like the cuffs. And if I wore a t-shirt and jeans, I'd often wear like a polo, loafers, and you know, trousers or something, and you couldn't tell I had any tattoos. I just looked like kind of like a shady real estate agent. It was kind of I had like a briefcase, like that was the look. You know, it usually had a kilo of blow in it, but like that was kind of like my cover was also a real estate agent. Um, and then when I came out to Bali, I knew I'd never work for someone else again. And I was like, I'm getting as inked out as I want to. I opened up tattoo shops, and the ink shifted. It wasn't so like what was cool in my area. It was more so things that started becoming important to me, that I loved the artwork on my body. And it also is addicting. Once you start, you're like, well, there's an open spot. There's an open spot. And you just keep going with it. But the ink transformed into reminders of what would be of spiritual lessons that I loved. It was parts that I wanted to look at them and then embody that aspect. So I really started going down my meditation journey. I wanted my Buddha. I really wanted to honor my time in Bali and what it did for me, and it saved my life. So I got some Balinese traditional Balinese mythology, and the honoring the Indian side of me. You know, I really wanted to go into my culture, and I was like, wow, okay. The ink started representing a deeper aspect rather than just trying to look like a badass, and that's what I like started enjoying doing. And then also it was kind of like a fuck you to ever working for anybody else again, because I was just like, I will always make things work, and I'm gonna get so inked out that I'm unemployable,
Mm.
and that like no one will ever hire me for any job
Right.
again,
Yeah.
because I'm a bad employee anyways. I need to work for myself, and so like I'll just go crazy on it. And living in Bali is a great place because tattoo culture is so like so accepted and promoted here. They love
Mm.
tattoos in
Mm.
Bali. Balinese dudes love tattoos. Everywhere I go, Balinese dudes are like, yo, cool tattoos, and I make friends quickly and easily with Balinese guys. It's cool. So art's really shifted for me, that I even like I forget that it's on me at this point. It's just like it isn't a thing for me, you know. Whereas before, I remember it would just be like it had a different, more narcissistic part of my vision on it. Whereas now I kind of feel like, yeah, it's just an expression of who I am, but I'm not the ink that's on me. Whereas before, it was really like a big part of my identity. But now these days, I'm just kind of like I ran out of tattoo room, and I don't really think about it as much as I used to.
Mm.
Yeah.
So before, when you started, it was to gain approval and acceptance,
Yeah,
right? To
yeah,
look
yeah.
cool,
There's a
be in with the
validation
cool
thing.
dudes.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
now it's completely shifted. Like now it's more like a spiritual
yeah,
thing for you.
yeah. The last few times I've gotten tattooed, I've made it like a spiritual ceremonial process, and that's why
Mhm.
at Karma House we do a tattoo ceremony,
Right.
and it's really nice to bring intention into the tattoos so they can be power symbols.
Mm.
So I can look at my Buddha and remember, oh, channel your inner Buddha, and I can look at different symbols on me and remind myself to act and think certain ways. And by doing a ceremony and putting intention into it, you can really cement that in, so they become like power symbols. Where I've studied and learned a lot about, yeah, symbology is actually important, and it's huge in, you know, in our cultures and in our roots and in mythology. And it's like symbols mean something, so make them mean something, and we can make anything mean something by bringing ceremony and intention and ritual into it. So it's like, oh wow, cool. Bringing that into the tattoo aspect made it deeper. So whether people want to get a fucking rocket ship on them, or, you know, something, a deep spiritual tattoo, we can put deep meaning into something that doesn't, into a fucking rocket ship. Like you can do it.
Mm.
And that's been interesting into me, to actually like totemize things in your life, because you bring your meaning into it. And that's what I love doing, is helping people pick their tattoos by finding ways to make it meaningful. And people often think that before, like, oh, I don't know how to make a tattoo meaningful. I'm like, well, let's find a way to do it. And I love that, because we can really make anything. Like I said earlier, if we change our perception on something, we change how we react to it. And that's a big part of coaching, and it's a big part of it. It's funny enough in tattoos. And so change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. So finding ways for people to really embody the meaning in their tattoos and it become a power symbol for them, that's been fun. That's rewarding.
So do most tattoo parlors do that, or
No, we're the only ones in Bali.
so you no one. So if I go get a tattoo somewhere,
Yeah,
because I don't have any tattoos,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And they won't be like, hey, I can help you like find some meaning in your tattoo.
They're more like, what do you want? What do you want? Let's do it. There's a couple intentional tattoo artists around, but we're the only shops in Bali that have a tattoo ceremony, and we're the only shops that fund a school for mentally disabled Balinese kids and do charity work in the other aspects of it. So a big part of Karma House and Conscious Arts is we give back to the island. So part of your tattoo is going to help people on this island. It's a good karma tattoo, and that's what people, that they love that once they find that we are a tattoo that stands for something, a tattoo shop that stands for something that makes an impact, especially in the Ubud spiritual yogi market. People are connected to that. They want it to be more than just a tattoo. They want it to be an experience. They want it to mean something. They want it to help people. Like, why wouldn't you, if you could buy these 2 glasses of water, but you know that glass of water helped somebody else get a glass of water, and this one's just a glass of water, you'd probably be like, yo, why not get the one that's going to help somebody? Plus our water tastes better. Right. And looks better, and it'll look better on you. You know, it's like in business, for so many people that, like my coaching clients that want to start a business, I'm like, cool, what's your give back? What's your karmic impact? How are you going to help the world with what you're doing? Because a lot of people think about what they can get, but if you can switch it to also how can you serve, things flow easier. Like, it changes how you look at it, and then it changes how you react to it, and then it changes how people act to it. And that's what really noticed that worked for me is, okay, how are you going to give?
So is that before you start every business, you think about that?
Yeah. I usually go to a meditation retreat. Before every business I've launched, I'd go and do a Vipassana, and then I'd have good ideas around the business. I'm kind of a bad meditator. I'm supposed to be there just meditating on openness and, impermanence. And I'm like, yo, angles on business. And I'll like write them down and like come out of it with like a business plan. But no, what all of those meditation retreats do is connect me back to my higher self and my spiritual side that usually always wants to help people. Like, it's an altruistic, deep inner core that I have, outside of all this, flashy bullshit. There's really like, how can I serve the world? And that's the part I had to connect to, because when I was a drug dealer, I wasn't connected to that, and I was sad. And then I realized once I got through, past my own addiction to money and power and drugs and all that, behind all that was, how are you helping people? And when I satisfied that, I scratched that itch that, okay, I will help people. I'll do something that's good. I'll be a good boy. I felt so much better, and everything flowed. It started working for me. And I really realized that was my why. And I think that's really important for people to do, is find out what's your deep inner core motivating factor. And if you're able to actually answer that, like find it and then answer it and then act like that's what matters to you, things change. They change quick.
So where did that come from for you? Do you think it came from the Vipassana meditation, where you were able to go deeper within yourself and access that deeper why? Or was it before that?
It came from really deep pain. Yeah, I think a lot of realizations come from our deepest, darkest nights of the soul. The times where we're like pushed the edge of pain, of hurt, of sadness, of depression, of confusion, of what the fuck am I doing with my life? Those are the times where the best answers come, because you're really cracked open. So I remember I was going through withdrawals from drug addiction, from being a drug dealer, and I was just like, who the fuck am I? You're in the worst part of your psyche. When you're going through hard opiate withdrawals, you are stretched thin. Like, you go crazy, you absolutely go nuts. You're being tortured by your body wanting a substance, and you're not getting it, and you really get pulled thin. And I remember at that point, hearing Under the Bridge downtown, Under the Bridge by Red Hot Chili Peppers. And the minute I heard that, the first few notes of that song, I knew it was going to be okay. I remember I was sweating it out. I was taking my 3rd shower of the day. I felt horrible. I could barely walk. And I heard that song, and it was like, yeah, it just clicked for me. It was like, you'll get through this and do really good things. Like that's just what's going to happen. So I had a deep insight through a moment of extreme, horrid, cringeworthy pain, and that's when okay, I could transmute that and go through it. The meditation retreats are super helpful, and they're also painful. You go through, you're stretched thin. You know, it's a lot of these times where you're extremely uncomfortable that something good comes out of it, and that's what happened with a lot of this was yeah, those times where you can integrate such deep pain psychologically or mentally or emotionally and you meet it, you don't run away from it, there's something really good behind it. There's wisdom, there's insight, there is direction, there is wisdom behind your pain if you can meet it and you don't run away from it. And that's something that I've really seen with all of this is just go into the pain, see what's on the other side.
Facing the, like you and your, I mean, right now as you sit here, are you in pain?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a broken leg.
Yeah.
I have a broken fibula
Yeah.
on this side that's still busted, so it's in constant pain. And I'm on painkillers. It's been a crazy journey to go off of opiates 6 years,
Yeah.
6.5 years clean, and then be dependent on them because you broke so many bones in your body. That's been an interesting karmic loop.
I was going to ask you about that. I was
Yeah.
like, how was that experience going back on opioids after so
Hilarious.
long?
It was funny because I saw it. Okay, when I was going into the when I'm in the hospital and I'm in the worst pain I've ever been in. There's literally a bone sticking out of my leg. You know, so many limbs are broken, and I'm like, "Yo, give me painkillers." Like, yes, absolutely. They're like, "Okay, we're gonna give you fentanyl," and fentanyl is what I was addicted to. And I just remember the moment clearly, seeing them putting that syringe into my body, and I'm like, "This is happening right now. Like, you're gonna do fentanyl. You have it for 6.5 years, and now you could be back on what you kicked. That was so hard to get off of. That took so many tries. That was the worst, most painful, horrible withdrawals you've ever felt. This is your karmic loop. Like you're back in this." And I couldn't help but be like, interesting. Like it's funny to see like this is what the universe is going to put back to you. This is a test that you're going to go through and meet again under a different place of your consciousness where you've like how much have you grown in the last 6 years, 6.5 years? How much are you going to be able to get past it in a skillful manner because you learned and you've grown, and this is your test. And that's the way that I thought of it when it happened. I'm like, I'll be okay. I can deal with this. I can get through it skillfully and plan this and do it in a way where I don't have the same the hooks that would make me as susceptible to addiction as I used to. Yes, this is still completely difficult. It's still hard, but I filled up other areas of my life that I'll be able to get clean and get off this, no problem, because I checked off the other internal factors that make us susceptible to addiction, like not having purpose, not having connection, not having a deeper level of self-love. Those are such important things that we forget that make us more susceptible to debaucherous behavior because we're trying to fill a void. I'm like, well, I don't have to fill those voids anymore. I've created a life I love, so I don't need to be high all the time. I can just be present and it'll be okay. Once I'm past this level of pain, I'm gonna be okay medicating for a while though. This sucks.
So you're able to just like, hey, I can use it for what I need, but beyond that, I don't need it anymore.
Yeah, I really had to like do work around that to make sure I meet this in a way that's skillful and use it when I need to. And that's like, okay, that's something I had to do the work around. But it's been interesting because I got to really see like, wow, a lot of our unhappiness and dysfunction and coping mechanisms come from a few factors not checked off in our lives. And if we're able to meet those in ways that work for us in our life, we often don't need some of the other behaviors that we would be doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Like it's interesting because there's always only a few areas of life that are causing all the other shit, like all the other bad shit.
All these weird things we'd be doing. We can actually kind of get through them a little bit by having a bit more purpose and connection and direction in our life. And that solves a lot of things.
Yeah.
We need to know what we're doing in life and where we're going and why.
Right.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just find the connection in the drugs. It's easy because the drugs don't talk back. It's like, it's always there. There's certainty in that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a certainty in a feeling that we want, and it's hard because life isn't certain, right. Clearly. And things will come at us and there'll be, curveballs, and we don't want that. We just want to feel good all the time.
Yeah.
But we got to be able to be okay with the pain.
What's fascinating, what comes to me as I'm talking to you is when you were injured, you had all this love, all this outpouring of love. And it's like, there's a phrase I like to use. It's like, dig your well before you're thirsty. So like you had all of these people giving you love, but there's a lot of people out there who are hustle, Like they don't want to give any time to anyone. And then if something like what happened to you happened to them, hardly anyone would be coming to their rescue because they've treated people like shit to get to the top, right?
Yeah.
But you've done it the other way, where you also succeed in your businesses, but you're also making sure that your relationships are thriving as well. So how do you do that?
I really like this question because I got a chance to be coached by a couple really impressive entrepreneurs like Kevin Harrington, who was like the original Shark Tank guy, and a few other people that I really look up to. And I noticed the marker of a really impressive entrepreneur and just great partner or boss or CEO was they gave in their presence with someone. So like people who were way above me in business, when I talked to them, they really felt like they were there talking with me. Like they were really there. They really gave to me when they could, and they were just in service effortlessly. It was just what they did. And I really admired that. And I try to do that with people that I connect to and I talk to, is really be there when I can. Like, okay, actually be a generating a positive force around me and to the people I connect with. And yeah, digging my well before the accident, definitely, because I have been serving for a long time. It really was amazing to feel it come back. And then I looked at some people who had been in accidents around the time I had been, and it was really interesting to see what they were going through and what I was going through, because no one really showed up for them. And one person in particular, this person was kind of a negative person. I remember every time I'd talk to them, I'd always feel like I was being poisoned. Like it just wasn't really like a positive
Yeah.
interaction. It was always like kind of negative, and I was like, that it wasn't the same energy. And I remember them complaining. No one really showed up from the hospital. And in my head, I was like, well, it's kind of because you're a bit of a bitch. But no, but it was just like, I could
Right.
see it was like, oh, it wasn't the same energy. And it was so important to be able to give in interactions. But I also, not just because you might need it someday, but I see it come back in successful people. Like the entrepreneurs I was looking up to, when they talked to you, you really felt like you were left with something. Like it was like some wisdom, some attention, some care, some guidance, and that they were there to serve. They didn't have that feeling of using you and manipulating you for your time. It
Mm.
was actually the marker of good CEO serves everyone around them. So they drive the ship by leading by example, but also seeing how they can find angles to help people. And I just thought that was super cool. Like that was impressive. It's just the way their mind works is always generating the best situation and helping people. And I got to be careful not to overcoach people and give unsolicited advice, but to be a giver, I saw actually makes you successful. And it's kind of the only skill I have is to be a connector. Like I don't know how to tattoo. I don't, I don't do much in the other businesses except connect people together. So that's one way that I learned was to be a giving as a connector is going to pay you back many ways over, and to try to keep your connections and try to keep success just for yourself rather than sharing it in every opportunity you have. That's what keeps you in a lower space. But in that giving and abundance and referrals and just helping everybody you can in every chance you can get without overextending yourself, that's what makes people successful. And you feel successful actually, because you could be Scrooge McDuck vibes and just be baller, but you're lonely, and then you want to do pills again. Like it doesn't really help. I've been a lonely baller before. I remember being high as fuck on one Christmas Eve, and me and my family weren't getting along. They weren't exactly at that point excited about my lifestyle choices. So I remember spending a Christmas by myself, and I was just like, I could have overdosed that day. I did a lot of drugs, and I just remember, and I had stacks of cash around me, and I was just like, what am I fucking doing? I remember drinking like a $400 bottle of Hennessy, by myself. And I'm like, who the fuck wants to drink a $400 bottle of Hennessy by yourself? It's meant to be shared. Like you could just drink a bottle of Smirnoff then, but why are you drinking top shelf stuff alone? That doesn't make any sense. And I really realized that it's like, no, man, you can't be winning by yourself. It's not fun. You got to win with other people. And that's why I love launching businesses with my friends and, having such a big friend circle, because it's fun winning together. Winning alone just ain't worth it. It isn't. I'd rather win a bit less and do it with people I love and have fun and have that community, because that means so much more than being alone in a fucking Bugatti or something. It's not it's just not worth it. It doesn't feel worth it.
Mm. And you have the unique viewpoint because you've experienced both.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't have a Bugatti. I had a white Mercedes.
Close.
But it was more fun when it was full of people I liked than just by myself, Yeah.
Yeah. So you used to do a lot of drugs.
A lot. I did a hectic amount of drugs. Like my habit was about 15 grand a month in drugs. I was doing a lot.
Wow.
Like I'd have to spend. I had a budget for the those blockers for the nose that'll unblock your nose, because my nose was always blocked because I was doing too much drugs. So I'd actually like always have these like things that would clear your nose out so I could do more drugs. Like it was hectic, but I was extremely functioning addict. That was the thing, was I was a hyper functioning addict. At that point, I still had a real estate development company. I was running 5 or 6 other dudes that were working in different cities, sending them work. Like I was functional, highly functional, but I was just high all the time. It was just like a weird place to be in. And then to look at the same patterns you bring into business, if you haven't resolved them, you do the same thing. And when I came here and I wasn't doing drugs, but I was still addicted to being busy, I was still addicted to, caffeine or whatnot. And I saw, oh, it's the same patterns, just different actions. And I had to like look on that. And that's what we got to do with the work, still is like, wait a minute, am I addicted to similar things, just different circumstances? And I feel like that's why the accident happened, was I was still addicted to being busy. I was rushing around, wanting, trying to feel important. Whereas now, okay, I learned that lesson. I'd rather just chill a little bit, go a little bit slower, stop being addicted to success and be more present with with what's in front of you and being happy. And that was a big shift that happened through all this.
And do you feel like when you let that addiction to success go, more success comes?
Way more opportunities come that way. Yeah, forcing it doesn't work. And something that's so funny, it's like, well, often we think that we gotta hustle, we'll just make things happen. Yeah, we gotta put effort in, rightful effort, but forcing it, like, unintelligently and doing it from an ego space, it doesn't work as much as cruising from the heart space. Like just working from different areas in your psyche, it makes a difference. I really have to check myself on that. Like, am I doing this from the ego, or am I doing it from the heart? Like, where is this coming from? And we know if we're doing it from the heart, head, or dick, which what outcome and what actions come from that. We can tell quickly, right? It's something that I need to be mindful of.
Do you feel like you have a lot of drive when it's coming from the heart?
Yeah.
Do you still have that level of drive? Like, because before it was like, I want to get more significance, more power.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I want to, help the world and do more for the world.
Still have drive, because I feel like I have learned a lot of like the logistical and life lessons that I learned from hustling, that you learn how to work smart.
Right.
It's like you learn how to work a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
But the outcomes are always way better when it's a bit more heart centered. Really, like everything's more enjoyable. There's less frustrations. There's less arguments. There's less misunderstandings. There's better people in your life for sure. Like, holy shit, when you make that shift to being a bit more of a heart-centered person, just the quality of humans you have in your life increases. And that's one huge thing about when the accident happened. The amount of people that I had that were in my inner circle that were just high-level quality humans with huge hearts was like, wow, this was amazing. Whereas before, when I just thought I was a baller and I was just doing a bunch of bullshit, when something bad happened, there wasn't that many people around that, if people are around you just because they can gain from you, when things aren't good, they're not going to be there. And that was a hard lesson to learn. It's important to have people around you that genuinely love you because you showed up and genuinely love them. And that's something that's been a big lesson, was that's heart-centered action. It's so important. It makes life so much better.
And easier too, I'm imagining.
Totally.
Yeah.
Less fights.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So how do you view people? Like, because when you think about people, what things come up for you?
It's funny because I have a couple different like parts of me where like, okay, we're all just spiritual beings on spiritual journeys and learning lessons, and then there's other parts of me that are like, these motherfuckers. Like I grew up in a rough area where I'm like, what the fuck do you want? Like my inner voice can be so funny sometimes, especially when I'm driving. It's not very kind if I'm driving my truck now and people drive like idiots. I'm like, you fuck. Like, hey, shanti bro, where did that part come from? It's from East Vancouver. But the other parts of me, to really see and read people as, we all have our internal motivations. There's parts of us that are run by validation. There's parts of us that, a lot of us, we just want to be accepted. We just want to be heard and seen. And we might not all have the same skills that we've been through, or been through the same things that produce the same conditions in our mind and conditioning that we have, and to be a bit more understanding and accepting of that. That's really helped me, especially in like resolving conflicts, especially in just like mediating between people and being a good middleman. I mean, that's the art of good business. I learned that from the drug game, but I heard it in from like an entrepreneur saying the art of good business is being a good middleman. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And the art of good peopling, being a connector, is being a good connector between people, being a good middleman. Can you actually understand the other side and see what their motivations are, and what do they actually want? What is motivating them? What is validating them? What do they want to hear? What are they seeing? How do you think they perceive you? And understanding people a little bit deeper has helped me be way less of an asshole. Like way for real, like way less egoic. If I can just kind of take a minute to be more curious about what's making someone tick rather than just judging them right away. And that, I feel like where I grew up, quickly we just judge people. And I think a lot of people grow up that way, and they just like, you just feel instantly judgy, and just a little bit more as like, this is a person, what do they really want? And that's helped me a bit.
I'm more understanding of the person.
Yeah. And try not to be so like, this is the Aren show and other people are just characters in my movie. Everyone's having their own movie, and you're also a character in theirs. Think outside of your own personal box, which is actually a super dope book, Leadership and Self-Deception, by the Arbinger Institute. And that's a really good book about seeing yourself as not just your own movie and everyone else is a player in your movie, that you're having a movie right now too, and I'm a character in yours. And remember that we're all characters in each other's movies, and not just living our own little selfish, egotistical world. That's important. That's a really important skill to have.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're coming up on the time now. So we'll cut this short, but then we'll do another one, I think, if you're open to it.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
But yeah, like where can people find out more about you?
My Instagram is probably the easiest, quickest, and most updated. Ink, Pray, Love, Like, Eat, Pray, Love. That's the movie that changed my life, and I found out about Bali. They can absolutely come find me on Instagram. Message me. Let me know what you think about this little recording and what we should talk about next. I feel like we definitely could have gone for 3 hours. Let's do a part 2. Sorry, I had to rush off. I have to go do more inner deep healing after this. I have a session. That's exactly what I had. And my website, www.arenbahia.com. If you're in Bali, please visit my shops, my tattoo shops, if you want any tattoo work, Karma House, Bali, and Conscious Arts Tattoos. If you're a content creator, come to Lighthouse in close to Canggu in Korobakan. That's where we're at now. We'll have 3 studios for all of your content creation, audiobook, podcast, webinar needs. We got you covered. So come down to Lighthouse, and thank you.
Aren, man, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, bro.